Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 281 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the success of the wildcard teams in the Major League Baseball postseason. Major League Baseball first introduced the wildcard in 1994, adding one more playoff team in each league. Now there are 3 wildcard teams per league. Of the 4 teams that have made it to the championship series, only the Houston Astros won their division. This is only the second time the NLCS has featured 2 wildcard teams, the first time being last year. We are seeing more and more wildcard teams have major success in the postseason. Here are the teams that won the World Series as a wildcard team. The Marlins in both 1997 and 2003, the Boston Red Sox in 2004, the St. Louis Cardinals in 2011, the San Francisco Giants in 2014, and the Washington Nationals in 2019. This year's postseason in particular really has me wondering about why exactly any team should care about winning the division. The Braves, Orioles, Dodgers, Brewers all won their divisions, with the Braves and Dodgers winning theirs by over 15 games each. Yet what was their advantage? We all thought that 5 days off was a good thing, but now we're all rethinking that there shouldn't be that big of a layoff for Major League Baseball teams in the postseason. Fans and media are clamoring for the return of the one-game wildcard playoff because that is a clear disadvantage for a team if they get in as a wild card. I don't think this is coming back, but I do think there will be changes in the coming seasons to baseball's playoff format to help make the winning the division matter. Because if winning the division doesn't matter, then they should get rid of them altogether and we should just have seeding like in the NBA playoffs. And I've heard the loud counter arguments about how this isn't a bad thing for baseball, that all of the best teams are losing, that it's about what's happening on the field. And I get it. I read Heidi Watney's tweets about how we love Cinderella stories. Yes, we love a Cinderella story. We don't want an entire postseason to be full of Cinderella stories, because what ends up happening is you begin to rethink about how important a 162 game regular season actually is. I think sports needs to go back to making regular seasons important. There are too many sports right now where you don't have to watch a lot of regular season games, the NBA included. The postseason is the most important thing, but you need to make your regular season product important. Why should the Atlanta Braves fans care about the regular season anymore? They're so talented, they're going to make it to the postseason, and winning the division doesn't really matter. The only thing that Braves fans have to look forward to is the postseason, where the team continues to lose. I mean, you need to give that team some sort of advantage for winning that division to get that fan base to care about watching that team during the regular season. I will say, and I've talked about this in the past, that winning 100 games means absolutely nothing anymore in the sport of baseball. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it seems like over the last few years, we have a team in the first half that is incredible. Last year, it was the New York Yankees. Remember how good they were. They had Aaron Judge having that historic season. They went on to win 100 games. This season, they were nothing. And then this year's team was the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays seemed to be that team. They were the hottest team in the first half. They were running away with it. We all thought they were going to the World Series. They were that next it team. I think that's baseball's problem, that for the majority of the season, being the best team in the sport kind of means absolutely nothing. Yes, because of that hot start, the Rays got all the way into the postseason, but where did it really get them? They were eliminated early. Baseball in general should definitely want the wild card teams to do well, but this well, I think it's concerning because you want the division to matter, because if the division doesn't matter, why on earth would the Philadelphia Phillies ever care about winning the NL East again? They've now been to the championship series 2 years in a row, losing that division, and they might be going to a second straight World Series. Yet the Atlanta Braves continue to win that division, and it doesn't mean anything. I think that's the concern here, is what is the importance of the division? It's not about the individual teams. Maybe the Phillies just have it over the Atlanta Braves. I think the concern is, what if a team like the Phillies go, we can just be the wild card team every season. We don't care about the division. If the divisions don't matter, then the baseball playoffs are forever changed. That's a fact, not an opinion. And there is something about this year's MLB postseason that might only be bugging me. I believe that you should only play a team in your division in the playoffs in the championship series, but the Dodgers and Braves lost in the division series to division rivals. I don't think you should play a divisional rival until the championship series. The Phillies and Braves were good enough to be the National League Championship Series. Remember in the 2000s how great Red Sox and Yankees were back-to-back years in the championship series? 2003, we get the Aaron Boone home run. 2004, we get a 3-0 comeback from the Boston Red Sox. That would not have happened if the Red Sox had to play the Yankees in the division series. Yes, it's kind of surprising that the Diamondbacks defeated the Dodgers, but on the other hand, it makes absolute sense. The Diamondbacks faced the Dodgers 13 times in the regular season. They were familiar with their opponent. How is that an advantage to the Dodgers? Yes, they had home field or whatever, but they had to face a team who they regularly play against. That's not an advantage. What's best for the sport is having a divisional rivals face off in the championship series. It's better for that stage. Those teams are familiar with each other. It's more exciting, and it's more of an advantage to the team that won the division, that they don't have to face a team 13 times in the regular season in the first round in the postseason. It would have been more of a Cinderella story if the Milwaukee Brewers took out the Atlanta Braves, because they're a team that is less familiar with the Atlanta Braves. The Philadelphia Phillies beating the Atlanta Braves isn't that surprising, and I think that's the problem right there, is that it's not that surprising, because they are divisional rivals. The Phillies are a good team, so what exactly did the Braves get by winning that division? They got a visit against the Philadelphia Phillies, who know everything about them in the first round of the postseason. I don't think that's enough of an advantage. So why should the Braves ever care about winning the NL East ever again? And for the Dodgers, how many years in a row have they won the NL West, yet they have one World Series title to show for it? What advantage have they gotten? They had way more of an advantage when there was a one-game wild card playoff, because in that scenario, the wild card teams would have to use their ace pitcher in that wild card game, and then they wouldn't be readily available in the division series. That was a clear advantage. That advantage is gone. And I know people are fixated on that 5-day layoff thing. Yes, I think that has some clear thing to do with what's going on this postseason as well. I mean, momentum is a thing in baseball. Those other teams got to play meaningful baseball games while the other teams were sitting on their couches. I mean, you can't say that was a non-factor. Clearly, that isn't an advantage for the team that won the division. It's an advantage for the wild card teams. But again, what I believe what was more concerning is that the Dodgers and Braves had to play two teams in their divisions. That's not right. That's not how it should be. You face that team 13 times in the regular season, and then they end up being your first round opponents. No, baseball should make a rule that you can't face a divisional rival until the championship series. That, I believe, is fair stakes. What I'm saying here is baseball has given teams absolutely no reason to not want to be a wild card team. When there was a one-game playoff, there was a clear reason to not want to be a wild card team, because if the Phillies had to play a one-game playoff, they would have had to use Aaron Nola or Zach Wheeler in that one-game playoff. That was a clear disadvantage. Also, one game for everything is a huge disadvantage because your entire season is on the line. In that free-game series, I'm sorry, that's just not that exciting. That's just not that thrilling. Most of the wild card rounds ended up being sweeps anyway. Baseball took away something that was both exciting and impactful on the postseason, and I do believe they should bring it back. The wild card game should come back, and the wild card round should disappear because it's not bringing anything good to the sport. I know a lot of you listening don't feel bad for the teams that have lost, but here's a fact. The fact of the matter is the teams with the top 5 records in the sport, the Orioles, Braves, Dodgers, Rays, and Brewers, went to combine 1-13 in this year's postseason. That's odd to say the least. If anything, you need to examine what's going on in the postseason when something like that happens, because then when stuff like that happens, you go, wait a second, does the regular season matter at all? I mean, those are the kind of questions you don't want if you're the sport of baseball. You have the longest season. You have a 162-game season. You need people to somewhat be invested in the regular season, and this isn't getting the job done when they see things like that, when they see the top 5 records get eliminated. Not only get eliminated, but get whooped in the postseason. There has to be a reason why this happened. If it was 1 or 2 teams, it wouldn't be that concerning, and I'd be fine with the so-called Cinderella stories. That's great, but the Phillies beating the Braves isn't a Cinderella story. That was a postseason round that should have been played in the championship series, in my humble opinion. Don't act like the Philadelphia Phillies are a Cinderella story. They paid Bryce Harper a boatload of money. They paid Nicholas Castellanos a boatload of money. Kyle Schwarber, the list goes on and on. Trey Turner is the highest paid shortstop in the history of the sport. What Cinderella story am I talking about? I'm talking about a baseball heavyweight that bested a divisional foe in the first round of the postseason, and no one was surprised by it, and I think that's the biggest problem. The Phillies beating the Braves wasn't surprising because the Braves didn't have a clear advantage for being the division winner. I think there needs to be more of an advantage. I don't know what that advantage should be. Again, go back to making it a one-game wildcard playoff and go with my idea that you shouldn't face a division rival in the division series. Those should be kept for the championship series because it's not that surprising when a team beats another team that have already played against each other 13 times in the regular season. As you can tell by listening, I'm way more concerned about what happened in the National League than I am than what happened in the American League. The Texas Rangers beating the Baltimore Orioles made all the sense in the world. They had Bruce Bochy, who of course has experience in the postseason. They were basically a division winner most of the year. They only lost the division the final week of the season. Them beating the Orioles wasn't that surprising to me either, but I don't really have a problem with that. What happened in the National League, I do have a real problem with. I don't think it's an advantage for the Dodgers to have to play a division rival in the Arizona Diamondbacks, and nobody's talking about that. Why is it surprising when a team who you face 13 times beats you in the postseason? That's not surprising. They're familiar with you. Even if you were more dominant in a 162-game stretch, that team is going to be motivated to beat you in the postseason more than other teams. How is it an advantage for the Dodgers to face the Diamondbacks? The Dodgers should have faced another opponent, and so should have the Atlanta Braves. What's happening in the American League makes sense to me. The Astros are facing the Rangers, a division rival, in the championship series the way it should be. That's the series I want to watch in the championship series. I don't want a juggernaut team to lose to a division rival in the first round. That should not happen. Baseball moving forward should not allow that to happen. If the Phillies and Braves are now the sport's best rivalry, allow that to take place in the most important series of the year, the championship Championship Series. Again, remember how great the Red Sox and Yankees were in 2003 and 2004. Don't waste your best matchup in the division series of the playoffs. Because honestly, who's that excited about seeing the Phillies versus the Diamondbacks in the Championship Series? I believe the Phillies are going to move on because they are a lot better than the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, we've heard the outrage from people like me and from fans and from media, but I'm really interested to see how the sport itself reacts to this postseason. Will drastic changes be made? Will the wild card go back to being a one-game round? I have absolutely no idea. I think something has to happen when the teams with the top 5 records are eliminated easily. You have to make the regular season matter. See how desperately the NBA is trying to have the regular season matter by having these in-game tournaments? You don't want to be like that if you're baseball. You don't want an in-game tournament. You want to win the division and to have it matter. And baseball isn't there right now because there's a lot of teams asking themselves, should I even be playing for the division anymore? The Atlanta Braves are probably asking themselves, should I care about winning the NL East next season if I have to go up against the Braves in the first round again? There is one change that's 100% going to happen. Next season, I guarantee it, there will not be a 5-day layoff for the teams that don't play in the wild card round. They will be playing at least 3 days after. That's an easy fix that baseball has to do. The other fixes, they're complicated. Like, I don't think they're going to go with my idea that you can't face a divisional foe until the championship series. They're not going to go with that. And I don't honestly believe they're going to bring back the one-game wild card playoff. I don't think that's what they want to do because as you're seeing in all of these sports, they want more playoff teams, not less. But what happens when you add more and more postseason teams? The regular season starts to matter less and less. Again, I ask you, why should the Atlanta Braves want to win the NL East? Why should the Dodgers care about the NL West? Why does any of it matter if you're just going to face divisional foes in the early rounds and get eliminated? You have to ask yourself, why does the division matter at all in baseball? It's a difficult question, but none of the teams that are left have won their division except the Houston Astros, who have the advantage of going to 7 straight championship series. The team that won their division and is still there is basically a baseball dynasty. And if you're a fan of the Braves, it feels like you're reliving the 90s when you're an all-time great regular season team, but you keep falling short in the postseason. Now, if it were only the Braves, it wouldn't be that concerning. But the other teams, the Dodgers, the Rays, the Brewers, the Orioles, these teams had great regular seasons and ended up getting eliminated easily. I think that's a problem when it's 5 teams. I don't think that's just wonderful Cinderella stories. If it was 2 teams that were eliminated, yeah, we could have a Cinderella story. But 5 teams, the 5 best records, that's not good for the sport when the 5 best teams get eliminated early on. It's a clear sign that the regular season isn't as important as it should be. And I will say you can't just blame the sport for this. I mean, it's not baseball's fault that Mookie Betts didn't hit this postseason. It's not baseball's fault that Adley Rutschman didn't hit for the Orioles. It's not baseball's fault that the Braves struggle with the Phillies. There are some things that baseball can control. I just feel like at the end of the day, when the team with the 5 best records go 1-13, you at least have to look at the product and go, are we doing enough to make it so that winning the division matters? And right now, I think the clear answer is no. You need to give them more of an advantage for winning that division because this bye was more of an advantage for the wild card teams, clearly, because they kept the momentum all the way to winning that division series easily. Whether it's dramatic changes or minor changes, I think baseball's postseason will look different next year. They're going to make changes changes. How big or small, I have no idea. I think they should be bigger. Again, my idea is you can't face a divisional opponent until the championship series, and I do believe they should go back to a one-game wild card round. Because if things just stay status quo, I think you'll see this troubling pattern continue, that the wild card teams will continue to upset the divisional winners, and the regular season will cease to matter, and that's worst case scenario for baseball. It's not the fact that the Braves didn't beat the Phillies. It's the fact that winning the division doesn't matter at all right now. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.